Hey, Frog fans, welcome into another episode of Frogs Insider. I am Jamie Plunkett here alongside Melissa Truebosser, as always, bringing you the latest news and notes from around TCU athletics. Melissa, we had some big breaking news that we're going to get into.
Major announcement.
Major international breaking news.
I've been workshopping an accent, but I don't think that this is the time to use it.
I heard one today at the actual press conference. Not going to try.
Okay. It's probably better for everybody if neither of us attempt this.
Absolutely not. This is Frogs Insider presented by the Flying T Club. We are the premier, the number one, the only, in fact, TCU podcast out there going steadily right now. But Melissa, before we get into TCU football heading to Ireland in 2026, let's talk
Spoiler
about
alert.
spoiler alert. Let's just give a shout out to our presenting sponsor, the Flying T Club, right off the top. You're going to hear more about them later in the episode as well, but the Flying T Club is TCU's NIL collective. They support over 130 TCU student athletes, and you can learn more about the Flying T Club at flyingtclub.com. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about them later in the show, but that is our presenting sponsor. We are also a part of the Republic of Football Network over at Dave Campbell's Texas Football. You can find that podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts by searching Republic of Football Network. Okay, Melissa. TCU football, North Carolina, Dublin, Ireland, 2026.
Worst kept secret in DFW over the past 2 or 3 weeks.
The leaks started happening. The rumors started flying.
The website went live.
Website accidentally went live there for a minute about 10 days ago. But there were still some questions about, and I think, for us, we had heard some rumblings. Obviously, the folks over at Horned Frog Blitz, there was a long thread about it. Shout out to Pastor Jeff for getting people riled up over there. But I think, just to start this out, TCU football, North Carolina will play in Dublin in 2026 on August 29th. That will be the season opener for both schools. This takes the place of TCU and North Carolina playing in Fort Worth that year. That game was scheduled for September 5th, 2026. It will no longer be happening as the return game.
Why do I never get my birthday game? This is like the third time TCU has rescheduled a game that would have happened on my actual birthday.
They want you to be able to celebrate with friends and family and have that day.
At the Carter.
Well, it wouldn't have. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Anyway, sorry.
115 degrees on that field. You sure you want that?
Absolutely.
All right. Well,
because I can't have it, Jamie, because for so many times I've been so close.
It's the desire of the unachievable bit. Okay,
yes,
I get it. Well, Melissa, this game is going to be happening in Dublin, not on your birthday.
Yeah.
It is the return, quote-unquote, home game for TCU in the home-and-home series with North Carolina. Obviously, the first game of that series is happening in Chapel Hill this upcoming fall on September 1st on Labor Day. Another nationally televised, nationally selected, kind of hand-picked game that TCU will be involved in. There have been a lot of opinions about this game and where it's taking place and when it's taking place and why it's taking place and all of the above. But let's start with the basic, most obvious response. This is a really good and cool thing for TCU.
100%. I mean, you are getting for, what is this going to be now, the 5th year in a row, a standalone spotlight, all eyes on you college football game. Like those, and that's for TCU, all eyes on TCU 5 years in a row. Like that is an unbelievable opportunity for the university. It's an unbelievable opportunity for Sonny Dykes and TCU football. We've seen it go poorly.
Sure.
Against
Colorado.
Deion Sanders. Yeah. We hope to see it go super, super well this year on Monday night on the Labor Day game. But to be one of just a couple of universities that has opportunity to play across the pond is pretty freaking cool. And my immediate reaction when the rumors started leaking was hell yes, like 100%. I understand the detractors, but 100% all in. Ireland is a country I've not been fortunate to go to, is a place I've been anxious to go to, and I will find a way to cover that game and be at that game in 2026. I think it's an unbelievable exciting, positive, win-win for everybody involved. And for TCU fans, yeah, like it's expensive and it will price some people out. I totally understand that. But we've gotten some pretty good destination trips these last several years in and out of conference. And this is another really unique, really cool opportunity.
It truly is. And you talked about the opportunity for TCU student athletes, right? This is something that a lot of these kids maybe don't get to do outside of this opportunity with the football team, to travel to another country, to experience another culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked to Nana Asafo-Mensah at the press conference announcing this game, and he participated in this game when he was at Notre Dame in 2023, and said that it was a life-changing experience for him. Not just the game itself, which I believe Notre Dame beat the brakes off of Navy in that game, but the week leading up to it, the experiences of traveling around Ireland and getting to know the people and understanding the culture and ingraining yourself in the culture just for a little bit of time. He ended up actually going back and spending a summer internship there at a law firm. He's considering pursuing his JD now, post-grad, because of that experience. And, I think there are so many opportunities for student athletes that they may not otherwise get, that doing something like this is really cool. And not to mention, you're a small select group of schools now that has had the opportunity to do this, right? Notre Dame has gone 3 or 4 times, Navy's gone 3 or 4 times, but it's like Northwestern and TCU and Pitt and Wisconsin in 2027 and North Carolina, obviously, for this game. It's a really cool opportunity, and it does come at a sacrifice. We're going to talk about that sacrifice in a little bit, but it's still worth it. And when you think even larger picture for TCU, it becomes even more worth it, in my opinion, when you're talking about this crossroads of college athletics and where TCU is trying to position itself. Expanding the TCU brand is of the utmost importance right now. And so playing overseas, even if that doesn't always make us feel like, we're getting the best deal as fans, well, the brand needs to be everything the brand can be in order for TCU fans to have the kind of athletics life they want to live, 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. So having this opportunity, taking advantage of this opportunity in a season where you still have 7 home games, to me, it's an absolute no-brainer for the administration to sign on to do this.
Yeah, this is 100% different than having your home and home turned into a one-off at Jerry World, right? This is, and I think I'm really glad that you brought up the point of the experience for the athletes, because it's really easy for us to look at the high NIL earners and these kids that are going to go pro, but there are 100 kids on a roster or so, and the vast majority of them have probably never been out of the country, and a large portion of those kids would never have the opportunity to travel overseas if not for this. And so you are giving them an experience outside of football that is invaluable. That's a really awesome story about Nana. Not surprising whatsoever.
No, he's got like 40 degrees at this point, so he's very
he's
smart.
Incredible. But I think it's super cool to see that side, that humanizing aspect. And it sounds like the players are super fired up about this. And that opportunity. So I totally understand the negatives, but when you mention, as you said, that there will still be 7 home games, like you gotta kind of put your negatives aside and quit thinking about yourself, and like you said, look at the big picture. This is an absolute home run for TCU, for the brand, for the athletes. And, unfortunately, not all of the fans that want the opportunity to go, but for those fans that are able to make it, certainly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And I think that the Irish fans are going to be lit. I mean, we've seen the fan bases at the NFL games. We've seen the fan bases at this particular game. My expectation is that this environment, while it might not be what we're used to for the elite college football environments, is going to be an incredible really, really unique experience for the fans in attendance and the fans watching it at home on TV.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of TV, the Georgia Tech Florida State game in 2024, week 0 in Dublin, drew 4.99 million viewers on ESPN. It was ESPN's most watched regular season college football game in 2024. And I know that there is a lot of anxiety around TV ratings. People hate talking about TV ratings unless you get really good ones, right? The random rumor that the College Football Playoff Committee was thinking about incorporating TV ratings into their selection process almost made me go completely bald, because I would have pulled all my hair out. And so I know it's a touchy subject, but the reality is going back to the previous point we were just talking about, how do you expand the brand? How do you put the brand's best foot forward? Well, you've got to put it in front of as many people as possible. There is, I think, a tremendous amount of work that has gone into cultivating TCU's brand over the last 2 decades, 25 years. A lot of that had to do with Gary Patterson. A lot of that had to do with the football program. And you saw almost the biggest next step you can take in 2022, right? Getting to that national championship game.
Yeah.
Didn't go the way any TCU fan wanted it to go, obviously. But now you've got to continue to keep your brand front of mind. You can't let that be the last thing people remember you for. You can't let losing to Colorado in Deion's first game be the last thing people remember you for. So keep finding the next big thing to do if you're TCU football, if you're TCU athletics, right? Maybe we're going to see baseball go on some international trip here in the future. That'd be pretty cool. I think, we can talk, in another episode about men's basketball and what they're doing with their non-conference schedule as they're trying to get a little bit stronger in that area. But for TCU football and for the TCU brand overall, the more that you can do to put yourself in front of as many people as possible, the better off you're going to be in the long run, because you're going to have a little bit of proof of concept to show to whoever you need to show it to when it comes cutting time.
Well, when you think about what TCU's average ratings are, and I have no idea if this figure is accurate because I should a really quick Google search, but looks like the average rating is about 1.7 million per game. Which again, like that number is fudged all over whatever. But
sure.
If you're estimating at least 2 to 2.5 times more people watching TCU football play, that's huge for the brand. You talked about what other sports have done. We saw women's basketball play out of the country, a little bit closer to home than Ireland.
Sure.
But those type of marquee games, if you can perform at a high level, can really elevate your brand. We saw that with the Fiesta Bowl. We won't talk about what happened the week after, as you mentioned, didn't go the way we wanted, but you still had a lot of people kind of falling in love with the story of TCU. And if you want to look at a football perspective, 2026 could be a pretty special year. If Josh Hoover comes back, he'd be a senior that year. You have an experienced wide receiver core that if you keep the bulk of that together, your running backs should be, you have a lot of young guys on the offensive line, the defense, you've got some young guys that should be stepping up. That's a season a lot of people have looked to from a performance perspective and said, this is a team that should make a Big 12 title run, potentially be a playoff team as well. And so you have a chance to start your season on a really high note against a quality opponent, because you imagine if Bill Belichick makes it more than 1 year in Chapel Hill, he'll have built a pretty decent program. These could be 2 teams that people are talking about dark horse contenders to be playoff caliber teams, to be conference championship style teams. Those are really important things. And for TCU, who had that magical 2022 run, but hasn't really done anything to get national recognition since, and had a couple of down years obviously previous to that, it is super important that when they do get those bright lights, those big stages, you don't see the Georgia game, you don't see the Deion Sanders game, but you see TCU playing its best football on the brightest stage. If they can build the momentum this year in Chapel Hill and then carry that on with that super marquee international game in 2026, you could be looking at a team that not only is playing at a high level, has a lot of people watching, but even if the committee isn't using ratings, is still absolutely going to be paying attention to. And that's one of those rare games when you can almost guarantee the committee members are watching. And if you can start them off with a very, very positive note on your football team and the performance of your athletes, that can only serve to help you with the rankings that we know are meaningless but aren't meaningless, and the eyes of the committee who might remember your performance in that game that they 100% watched, which they probably aren't going to watch TCU football if they don't start the season on week 0.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the committee. You made me think of the Oscars announcement this
now
week,
that they actually have to watch it.
They're making all of the people who vote on the best movies actually watch the movies they're voting on. That's a wild concept.
That's why people hate you, Hollywood. This is why people hate you.
Sure, but it's also why the selection show committee gathers in a room for the last couple weekends of the season and watches as many games as possible, and they watch all of the conference championships because they're trying to gather as much information. But the reality is if you're a selection committee member, there's no way you're going to be able to watch every game that every team plays. And so you're going to focus on what's put easiest easiest access right in front of your face. You're going to flip to ESPN, you're going to flip to ABC or NBC, and you're going to watch those football games. You're not going to hunt it down on ESPN Plus or on the CW or some of these other channels that are trying to get into the football game a little bit more.
And you're going to watch the teams that are good and the
also
teams that are ranked. And so if you're outside that top 25 going into the season, that type of game when everybody's watching can vault you into the conversation, and then you become a priority for the committee members who aren't going to be watching 100 games a season, like you said, or 100 games a week.
But they're going to be keeping an eye on TCU because they watched them once, thought they were pretty good, and want to see how things go
100%.
From there. All right, Melissa, let's take a quick break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the frustrations that we've been hearing from TCU fans on this very subject. Hey, Frog fans, Jamie Plunkett here, one of the hosts of Frogs Insider, and I wanted to take a second and talk to you about our presenting sponsor, the Flying T Club. The Flying T Club is an incredible organization. It's TCU's NIL collective, the only NIL collective for TCU, and they support over 130 student athletes wearing purple, loud and proud. They partner these student athletes with organizations in and around the city of Fort Worth, giving back to the Fort Worth community, making our community stronger and better. If you want to learn more about how you can support the Flying T Club's efforts and by proxy support TCU student athletes, all you've got to do is go to flyingtclub.com. That's flyingtclub.com and check out the different ways that you can get involved with that organization. I've known the folks over at the FTC for a really long time, and they're incredible people. They're dedicated Horned Frogs. They bleed purple through and through, and they want to get to know you and see how you can partner with them to make the best of TCU student athletes' lives while they're on campus and in Fort Worth. The work they do stretches well beyond TCU's campus as well, partnering with multiple nonprofit organizations. If you have any opportunity to give, I would encourage you to do so over at flyingtclub.com. All right, we are back here, Frogs Insider, presented by the Flying T Club. Thank you again to our presenting sponsor. Thank you again to Dave Campbell's Texas Football for putting up with us as part of their podcast network as well. Melissa, TCU is going to Ireland in 2026. They will be playing North Carolina to open the season. And a lot of TCU fans heard the news, and their first reaction wasn't necessarily positive. And I want to get into the whys because I think there is a legitimate frustration from a certain segment of TCU's fan base, and that is season ticket holders who saw a game on the schedule for 2026 that their season ticket package was going to cover. Now they're having to pay a couple $1,000 to be able to go and watch that game take place. Now, I understand this frustration. I don't know where you stand, but I believe you still have season tickets.
I do.
And so I would love to get your feedback on this.
I mean, I do still have season tickets. Yes, my tickets did go up this year, as most everybody's did. I did not get some of these significant increases that a lot of people did because I don't have the best seats in the house. And I understand, 100% agree with you. I understand the frustration of you see a marquee opponent. We assume a marquee opponent. We'll find out pretty quickly here. But what should be a marquee opponent, a Power 4 opponent, making a return trip to the Carter, and all of a sudden, like you said, it's an additional expense to go watch them play. And we have no idea who that home game is going to be replaced with. And for the people that are concerned it's going to be an FCS opponent, yeah, I'm totally with you. That is a bummer. You've lost a rivalry game, whether it's a rivalry game we care about or not, it's to be determined. But your home slate in this version of the Big 12 is not always the most exciting. I mean, we didn't get a big time matchup really at the Carter last year. You had Baylor on the road. You don't get Texas Tech this year. So there's certainly frustrations with the caliber of excitement around some of these games that you're going to face. But, I think as somebody who, is not spending tens of thousands of dollars on season tickets like a lot of people are, it's easy for me to look at the bigger picture and say, this is so good for TCU that ultimately this is going to pay back for me. Whether that's in a quality or caliber of a program, whether that's an investment in facilities, whatever that is, I do think that ultimately that will pay off. I often say that TCU, for all it charges, at least it's one of those universities where you can see where they spend their money. And I believe the same thing with season tickets. You can see your investment being paid off by the experience and the upgrades and the things that are happening, which hopefully Mike Buddy is going to continue to invest in those areas. So, I'm with it. And if I had, $12,000 worth of season tickets for a family of 4 in the lower bowl, and then I wanted to take that family of 4 to Ireland and it was going to probably cost me $20,000 or close to it, 100% I get that. But Like as we talked about before the break, I think at the end of the day, big picture wise, this is a one-time experience. TCU is not going to be playing in Ireland every single year. There's a commitment to not raise season ticket prices, from what I understand, in 2026. So at least maybe that's the trade-off. But yeah, I understand the frustration. I can agree with the frustration. But at the end of the day, it's not my frustration.
True. And, I think the unknown is part of the frustration for a lot of TCU fans. Like you mentioned, they don't know who the game is going to get, quote unquote, replaced with. Now, it's not necessarily getting a one-to-one replacement, because if you look at TCU's 2026 projected schedule, they had 7 home games on the schedule. North Carolina was one of those. So right now there are only 6 listed. That's BYU, Utah, Kansas, Kansas State, West Virginia, and then the non-conference game is Arkansas State. But they hadn't scheduled their FCS opponent yet, and that's going to be a home game. So that they're going to have 7 home games. That last opponent that they're scheduling probably isn't a Division I opponent. And so you are getting 7 home games. The caliber, like you mentioned, maybe not as good as it could have been otherwise. And you also obviously mentioned that SMU is no longer on the calendar. I've seen a couple TCU fans say, well, let's just go get SMU back on the schedule, get them in the Carter in 2026. Mike Buddy has said on the record, there have been no conversations about starting up the SMU game again moving forward. So 2025 is going to be the last Iron Skillet game for a while, and we're going to have to wait and see who that opponent is, that final Carter opponent is, in 2026.
Yeah, we will find out. And you know what? At the end of the day, we're all probably going to keep our tickets, because I have a feeling 2025 is going to get a lot of people locked back in with TCU football, and there'll be a lot of excitement for 2026. And so we'll suck it up and move on. That's what fans do. Sports has been very unfair to fan bases for decades, and it's only gotten worse. And we can talk to anybody in DFW that can completely and totally relate to that when you look at the basketball team and the professional ranks. So
why?
Fair is not a thing. You either shut up and take it, or you cancel your tickets, right? And I think for the most of us, we enjoy the experience of being part of that program, and so we'll just deal with it.
You
and
got
you
me
get to go to Ireland. I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I'm thinking about Luca now.
I'm sorry. This is my fault.
Might just fly through Dublin and go straight to Slovenia and just beg him to make it
I don't think you'd have to beg him.
I don't have to beg him.
He's not the problem there.
Someone
Mr.
else needs to get hit by a bus or something.
Or
Anyways,
stop talking. As Charles Barkley
just
said.
stop talking. Yeah.
Stop talking.
But we're going to keep talking for a minute, though, Melissa, because I wanted to take a look at future home games on TCU's schedule after 2026, because there's this idea. Bauer is fired up because there are actually, in my opinion, a couple pretty good games coming down the pipe. I know that there's a lot of frustrations about these marquee non-conference home games. There's a lot of frustration about not playing as many schools in the state of Texas anymore. And I think that this will satiate some of that for TCU fans if you start to look a little further out, because my understanding is, right, this is a one-off opportunity. You're going to go to Ireland. You're going to play North Carolina. North Carolina, by the way, is compensating TCU for the lost revenue of a home game. According to Inside Carolina, the 24/7 site for the Tar Heels, they had sources telling their staff writers that Carolina and TCU had come to a negotiation about compensating and offsetting TCU's lost revenue for that home game. That doesn't make fans feel better, but from a financial perspective, it's nice to know that TCU isn't getting shorted by losing a home game of this caliber. But moving forward, the home games that are still on the calendar for future years aren't terrible. I mean, I think they look pretty fun. You go to 2027, you've got Stanford coming back for their return game.
Have you seen Andrew Luck serving as scout team quarterback at Stanford spring practice? Maybe he unretires. Does he have eligibility left? He might get a fifth year. I don't know how that works.
Can he be the head coach and the quarterback at the same time? Because
that's
what we're tracking for up there in Stanford. And then Sam Houston State is on the schedule as well, which is a really fun, newly D1 school in the state of Texas. You can go listen to the Sam Houston State podcast preview that week in the Republic of Football Network. Shout out to Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Then you get to 2028. There's a road game at Duke as part of a home and home. No non-conference schedule games on the calendar yet. 2029, Duke comes back. You're hosting Texas State as well, and you've already got your FCS schedule scheduled as well in southeastern Louisiana. So that's a fun non-conference schedule with Duke and Texas State. I'm a big fan
and
of
Purdue.
Those two games.
2030 Purdue.
Finally.
There's no way that game happens, right? There's no way that game happens.
It might be a conference game. Who knows? Who knows?
Who knows?
But, Melissa, I think what we do know in this very moment is that TCU going to Ireland is a good thing.
Yeah.
Overall.
100%.
I cannot stress enough that the way TCU approaches its brand management is of critical importance. And we've seen them do that at the granular level pretty well recently with things like their campus master plan, with things like their strategic vision, and low-hanging fruit, like being able to play your first game overseas, is such an easy win in the long term, and even in the short term to an extent. So TCU fans, keep your heads up, keep your chin up if you're a season ticket holder. Continue to buy into the program, continue to buy into the university, because there are really, really big things on the horizon for this university, and it's going to take every single one of us, because TCU fans are few but mighty.
Ain't that the truth? I agree. Jamie,
Ain't that the
speaking
truth?
of few but mighty, I think this does it for episode 1 of this new format we're trialing out here.
We are trialing out a little bit of a new format, folks. So if you see another podcast show up in your feed tomorrow, don't be surprised. Be happy. Accept it with grace. And then come back the next day, and maybe there will be another one.
Yeah.
Who knows? Like the show wherever you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe on that YouTube channel and like the video. Let us know below how you feel about TCU going to Ireland in 2026. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Are you in between? Are you going? Maybe we'll see you there. Let's all crowdfund to get to Ireland in 2026. For Melissa Treebwasser, I'm Jamie Plunkett. We will talk to you next time. Go Frogs.
Go Frogs.